Welcome back to the Ask a Pro podcast. I'm your host, Brock Montgomery, and today's pro is Trevor Lackness, a professional shooting coach who's worked with the likes of Connor Bedard and is currently coaching with the Regina Pats of the WHL. Now, I actually worked with Trevor myself when I was around 13, 14. Even back then, you could tell he had a unique eye for shooting mechanics and player development. So in today's episode, we dive into the details, how elite players think about shooting, the mechanics behind world-class release like Connor's, and what separates good shooters from great ones. We also talk a bit about mindset, the thought process behind leaders around the league, how top players break down their training, and some of the secrets and habits Trevor has picked up working alongside one of the best young shooters in the game today. It was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it, and I think you will too. All right, let's get into it.
Tomorrow we're just off to Beijing, China. So who would have ever thought I'd be going to China with this hockey stuff? So easy. So
Come on, that's awesome. Well, because I think back to when we started first training with each other, it's first off, congrats with your success. It's great to see that you've continued and made such a good career for yourself. Because I think back when we first started, you were running, it was Puck Masters called, that's what it was called, right? And then what happened there? Because we kind of lost touch after we worked together for a couple of years, and I obviously social media and stuff wasn't as big back then, so we weren't able to really follow each other's careers or anything like that. I didn't really see where you went after Puck Masters.
well, no, after Puck Masters, um, I just kind of stayed with a local crew, and I ended up having a kid, and kind of took a back seat from doing big hockey schools. I was just kind of working with the guys that I grew up with in Puck Masters, and then stayed low, helped out with hockey schools. And then during COVID, that's when it ramped back up. Shay started an online Zoom. And okay, Shay asked me, he goes, I'm doing workouts with online. And Shay said, hey, could you come help me? It's tough to do the whole hour with just workouts. I think the kids want stick handling and some shooting. So okay, I had no clue. First time I've ever been on a Zoom. That's when the world first shut down. And when we started this, every kid was locked up in their house. So sometimes we were doing up to like 80 kids a day online. And then we had a friend start a social media account for us because he was trying to build a media thing. And next thing you knew, the whole Iran hockey national team got COVID, and they just Instagram searched um, hockey training at home, and we came up. So next thing you know, we're training the Iran national team, and then we got a news story out of that, and it kind of really we were training online kids all over the continent. And then when the rinks opened back up, nobody wanted to get near Zoom again, and then
Yeah.
Shay started up a training center, and he had this one little area for a shooting lane. And just one day he said to me, could you teach this one, come here and teach my one buddy's kid how to shoot? I said, okay. So I went there. And next thing you know, it was lessons after lessons. And then it just started up again there. And we just, and now we both work for the Pats. Shay just actually stepped away from the Pats. And we have this training center. We kind of went bigger because we have the Pats. I still do. I still work for them.
Oh,
And
cool.
open up a new place. It's got 4 shooting lanes. It's great.
That's awesome. Oh, that's cool. And so that's funny you say that you worked with the Iranian national team, because I was just helping run a camp in Armenia of all places, and we were supposed to train the Iranian national team, but I think it was I think it was like U16. I'm not 100% sure because I wasn't the one organizing everything. But then when Israel and Iran started kind of bombing each other there, unfortunately, then the Iranian team backed out of it. But that's pretty interesting to hear that you were working with the Iranian team. That's cool.
So when we were working with Iran, they're some of the nicest people I ever met, both the male and female team. And English isn't a strong point for all, but
Right.
they want to get better. A lot of them came from roller hockey to hockey. And then you're talking about conflict right in the midst of when we were training them. Trump bombed somebody there, killed one of their high military servants,
Yeah.
and at the same time, he put a tariffs on there. So, like a hockey stick would be like 4 times the price of what it costs in North America, like $1,200 for a hockey stick, or so it's good. Right when they got the sport growing there with their new rink in the mall, it kind of just flattened out a little bit because it's unaffordable to play hockey there right now.
Right. Oh, that's brutal. But so how was it then? Like, what did you have to do with the kind of language barrier? Did you have like a translator or something when you would help them, or what?
Yeah, absolutely. So we would say something so you could tell who can speak English and who can't because they would be right into it.
Mm,
So with that, Shay would do about a half hour fitness, then I would do half an hour just skill and maybe like a different shot technique. And when you're doing that, obs- you got to really cut your words back, or the conversation's twice as long.
yeah. Right. Huh. Because but you've had now a couple different um times overseas. Like you were just also with. I just had Cards on the podcast. You were also just with him over in Korea, right?
Oh yeah, that was an awesome trip. With all of a sudden, I go to Korea and I'm meeting him, and there was another guy with us. He was a BCHL coach, ex-WHL coach. Meet him up in the hotel room, and where are you from? Lumsden. I meet a guy in Korea that's 20 minutes away from me, and us four he had Nick, and there was four of us. We got along so good, and just yeah, to see the different things, the same game, but how much differently different countries do things. It's an eye opener.
Yeah. What did you find? Like, what did you find over there that was so different from the Canadian model?
You know, the one thing I'll say, like if me and you and your brother Bo opened up a tennis training center in Moose Jaw, we probably could go off Instagram and YouTube and find all the drills that the top people are doing and look good. But we wouldn't be able to teach just the little things, to really truly help you because we've never been in those big situations. We don't have experience. And I find in Korea, they're doing a lot of the same drills, but they don't have that high guys like I think in Regina guys have these ex NHLers and Dale Durkach, all time leading scorer, these hockey leagues, teaching the kids just the little things. And their game, I they all have good skating. I'm very impressed with the higher level teams. They all have high end skill, but it's the hockey IQ that's really lacking. And
Mm,
I'm not saying they're not smart people. They're very intelligent people. I just don't think it's being taught. One example, we're doing watching these 3-on-2 breakouts with the Bantam team, and three guys are entering the zone between the face-off dot and the boards, and nobody's really teaching them that why we spread out entering the zone, and I just think that's the big thing they're missing. And but they put it they're getting we're going to start seeing kids from Korea in the BCHLs here in the USHLs. We already have like 3 or 4, and they're putting in a lot more time than our kids are in, I can't speak for the whole world, but in
yeah.
Regina, Saskatoon. So it's just a matter of time. The other thing is, I think they really start their development at the later years, where I'm not saying it's too late, but they really focus on the 14 to 18,
Mm,
where you don't, and we didn't know who you were until 14. You're a good player, so then you get to move on. So I believe in Canada, our prime years are that 8 to 14 to build the kid up for success, to have a WHL career or whatever.
right. Yeah. Yeah. I understand what you're saying. And like Cards was saying that they're very attentive. So like you think kind of over there they just need that someone over there teaching them the proper like they're working hard, but maybe not working so hard with a purpose. Like they're not sure exactly why they're working so hard yet. Is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, uh, I say a lot of not, I never badmouth another hockey school, but sometimes a parent will tell me about a kid's hockey school that they went to Edmonton or they went somewhere and this celebrity Instagram guy did hockey school and it was so cool. And you say, well, what did you learn? And they say, well, I don't know, that not game situations. So one day, these Korean people came up to me and Tyler, who was the head coach of BCHL Langley at the time, and they said, "What do you think we should work on today?" A passing. And he goes, "Your kids are really behind on passing. I think that I could show you guys some good drills." And they were all, "No, no, 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 no passing drills." He said, "Parents won't like it. It doesn't look cool." Well,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things we do that not always look cool, but they help the little parts of the game.
Right. Yeah. Like those. Well, yeah, I kind of always say it also like you have to your training kind of also almost has to be a bit boring. Like you have to do things repetitively and do the simple things like over and over and over again. Because I completely agree with you. I've talked about it a few times with some people. Like the Instagram people are amazing and it's super cool what some of them can do on their, the influencers and stuff. But at the end of the day, like kids have to learn how to play the game. And credit to a lot of those influencers and stuff. It's amazing what they do. But like kids see that and think that they need to be working on their Michigans and stuff like that, where it's like, and like the parents think it's cool, all the flashy things and all these, different things. But it's like training to a certain point needs to be kind of boring for parents to watch. I think, like it has to, you have to be working on the passing, you have to be working on the game sense, you have to be working on different things like that. So it's also kind of nice, refreshing to hear that also from your side as well.
Yeah, it I don't know the direction it's going to go or thing, but I think it'll actually go back to just more basics. So a lot of this, like, and I'm a big supporter of Pep and the stick handling stuff. But now sometimes I think we got over crazy on the props where, going from end to end, you got to stick handle through 10 things. Well, maybe in a game, you're actually only maybe stick handling around one guy if you got some speed.
Yeah.
So we kind of became this cool thing. Well, what are the things in hockey we really need to be good at? Picking up a puck around on the boards. So if I just rimmed, me and Shay were just at a Calgary Flames practice the other day, and the whole practice was just picking up pucks off the wall, forehand, picking up off the wall, backhand. And I said to the guy, if me and Shay came and ran this particular practice that the Calgary Flames are doing for 10-year-old kids in Regina, the parents would be like, well, this is a boring practice. Why are we doing so much wall work?
Yeah.
But it's maybe not cool. And I think the good guys, at the end of the day, you got to keep the parents happy because they're the customers. And I think the successful guys that are in the development have kind of found a way to make it look good with stuff that counts. I think that's
Yeah.
maybe battle. You can't just be maybe forcing 10-year-old kids to do dump in the corners and compete drills. But I think there's the ways of bringing the two worlds together. I truly do. And at the end of the day, we want all the hockey to be fun, right? For the
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's so funny that you say that actually. So I don't sound like a broken record because last four of my guests are kind of been hockey guys, but I'll probably sound like a broken record, but it's so true. Like this week, I even just my theme of practice this week was wall battles. and so and I said to the kids like because there's a stat, I can't remember exactly what it is, but you look at there's like a heat map of an ice rink. And someone just came up with this stat, and it's like you only like it's like 96% of puck battles are like in the corners and then at the blue. Like you're not battling for the pucks mostly in the middle of the ice and whatnot. And so there's that part of it. And then the next part of it that I said to the kids was like, we can't just work on stick handling all the time and skating through pylons and cones and stuff, because if you also think about it, the stats that they show the top 1% of players in the NHL have the puck on their stick for no more than a minute a game. The rest of the players are around 30 to 45 seconds. In a whole hockey game, they have the puck on their stick for 30 to 45 seconds. So if you think about that, we can't just be working on stick handling all practice and all the time. We have to be working on other skills like.
So where was it? I'm just going on my puck. So puck handling in the NHL last year, Patrick Kane and Barzell led the NHL with a minute 6 puck control
Right.
in 21-minute shifts. So Patrick Kane's got all the things. So what's Patrick 20 minutes of the game that Patrick Kane is on the ice, he's not touching the puck. So it's not fun working on hockey IQ and decision making, and then on the stat, right? I think what did you say how much did the puck's on the outside wall within the 3 feet?
Don't quote me on this, but I think it was either 86% or 96%, something like
Not
that.
I've heard it's up to 54 minutes, depending on how it's different opinions of it, but it's all in
Yeah.
the 95%.
Of
And
puck battles, yeah.
then of the times you get the puck, your team gets the puck in the game, 60% it's taken up off the wall.
Mhm.
So if you want the puck, you got to be good at picking it up off the wall, but it's not always the funnest way and then back to Instagram. I think it's everything that the older people complain about Instagram on hockey. I think it's great. So, like when
Yeah.
we were training with Iran national team, most kid, when they'll ask you like, "Oh, do you know Connor?" When you have no clue about Canada, you think we're small. So they were asking us, "Do you know?" Other countries have said, "Do you know this guy or this guy?" No. And 3 different people asked me if I knew Pavel Barber. And, most people would ask me if I know McDavid or someone. And I thought, that is great. That is so Pavel Barber, and I like him. He's bringing in people to the game. So this is just allowing a whole bunch of different avenues of bringing people into the game. And I think that's great.
Yeah, 100%. I do 100% agree with that. I think social media, there's so much positive that can come from social media, and that's a great point and a great, yeah, what's the word I'm looking for? But yeah, it's just a great example of how it can be a positive for the players, for sure. I agree with that.
But the problem, I think a lot of our problems in the game also come from social media. So when a guy watches Kale McCarr doing his one dangle and it's taken in 5 different angles, that's what all kids want to be, is just that kid, the D man. Every kid wants to be Kale McCarr. Just take it every time I get the puck, I'm gonna go rush it to the other end. Well, Kale McCarr might only do that 2, 3 times a night, maybe.
Yeah.
Be successful and maybe only score 1 out of every 6 games doing that. And what did he do prior to that to create that space? But we only see that 15-second clip, and we all want our kids to be that highlight thing. And we don't see, here's an old name for you, a Hal Gill, a stay-at-home defenseman that just clears people in front of the net and penalty kills. He's never going to make an Instagram reel highlight.
No.
So we kind of want to draw our kids to what gives them attention. And I think it misleads a lot of people.
It does. I think it misleads a lot of people, and I think maybe the negative side for social media with young kids is that point exactly that you say. And I think just the hard work aspect, kids kind of can lose sight of how hard it is, like how hard you actually have to work to get to have those highlight reel. Like it's not going to come easy. Kids you got to work so hard off ice. Like I don't know what it is for you. I know like you work a lot on shooting. Like I say to the kids, like, hey, like you got to be minimum, like it sounds like a lot, but guys, you got to be minimum shooting 300 pucks a day, like minimum. That's minimum. And if you want to excel, you got to be shooting upwards of 1,000 a day. If you want to be in the top 1%, like what do you think? What do you say about that? Like,
Well, I don't know. I always say to the kids, I don't know what's right, but I'll tell you what successful people are doing in the game today. So there was a lot before I met Connor Bedard. I used to work with him usually every Sundays if they weren't playing, or once, twice a week. He'd come in throughout the winter, and there was a news story about him, and it was about how he shoots 1,200 pucks a day. And he goes, "No, I don't think that news. No, I didn't shoot that many, but probably 1,000." And then some adult overheard me asking him and said, "Oh, great, Connor." He said, "You got every kid in the world shooting 1,200 pucks a day." And he just said, "Good, they should be." Right. And he goes, "But I don't think." But so he was 1,000 pucks a day, he claims, from when he's 10, 11, and how good his shot is. I wouldn't argue with him. The top kids I know right now are shooting 700 and 500 to 750 shots a day. And I don't know if that's ludicrous, but that's what they're doing.
Right.
And it just compounds interest. So a little thing like if you take 100 shots a day a month, that's it. And we know you don't get to do it every time. There's Thanksgiving and there's whatever we got to miss. But that's 3,000 shots a month. Okay, now if you're doing 200 shots a month or 200 shots a day, that's 6,000 shots a month. So now over missing some days, 10 days, the guy that's shooting 300 pucks a day, he's shooting 60,000 pucks a year compared
Yeah.
to a guy doing 10,000. And then when you find out what those guys are doing, the compound interest, you never catch up to those guys. You're behind after years of their work. So I always say if you're crazy, go 750, but 300 is my minimum too.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. I never really even thought about the compounding aspect of it. Like, yeah, if you're just thinking, hey, $100 is good enough. Yeah, I never really even thought about the mathematical side of just compounding. If you're doing 100, next guy's doing 300, and that's kind of like you always have to be doing more than the guy next to you. Like, if you really want to try and give yourself an edge, like you gotta find out what others are doing, and you got to do more than that if you want to try and give yourself the best chance. I think.
Yeah, and I say there's some kids that are shooting at home too much. There's some kids that are at the gym too much. There's some kids doing power skate too much. You still need that well balanced. And the word the one thing Shay gets mad at being a personal trainer, the S and TS, um, he gets mad. A kid gets cut from a hockey team, and the coach usually, it's easy to just do the basics of cutting a kid. Sorry, buddy, you're too little, or you're not strong enough. Come back bigger and stronger, and you'll make the team. And that's kind of an easy way of cutting a kid. Okay, I'll go to the gym all the time and bulk up. And so the one year, this dad got really mad at Shay. This kid got cut because he didn't get bulky enough. And I said, "Come here." So I talked to the dad. I said, "How big's your kid?" He says, "My kid's 5'8", 160 pounds. I said, "Okay, let's go through this roster. There's 6 kids on the team that are shorter than your kid. 7 kids on the team that are lighter than your kid. So that's probably not the reason he got cut." Now if I say to the kid, "Oh, your shot's not good enough," you know, go go work on your shot. But that's the easy way because you can say, "Okay, I'll go to the gym all year and I'll prove to you when I come back I'll be bigger and stronger." And if the coach says, "Hey man, you need to work on your skating, your stick handling, and your shot." Okay, I'll go get a power skater. I'll go work with Trevor and I'll shoot ton of pucks and I'll be good. But hey guy, there's some guys on that team you got cut from that you have a better shot than. But a lot of times coaches will never say to you, "Hey, your hockey IQ's low.
Mm.
We're cutting you." Because saying you have low IQ is another way of saying you're dumb. So we don't go there. And how do you fix that? There's not like a ton of, hockey schools doing just IQ. And now if you don't get accepted to Yale or Harvard, how do you get smarter to get into a
Yeah.
Harvard? It's tough. So we sometimes misdirect kids and then kids focus too much. The reason you're not going to the next level might not be your shot. So I say, to create a nice little circle of events for yourself and try to touch up all the events.
Yeah, try and be as balanced as possible, I suppose. And like I think I mean, I suppose in Canada, I guess guys can you can overtrain, I suppose. But like for me, I'm over in the Netherlands here. I don't it's almost impossible for a kid to overtrain in the Netherlands. We just don't have the ice time. There's just not there's not enough ice time over here, I don't think. But like what do you think for like overtraining in, let's say, in the Canadian model? Like what do you think it looks like for kids overtraining?
Well, I don't I I don't it's tough one
Yeah.
because there's a difference between burnout and overtraining where you're overlifting and you blow your shoulder out or something. Those are two different things. A lot of people think like, oh, this kid's been training since he's 8 years old, and sometimes he might make a junior A team, Weyburn Red Wings in third line. And he works his butt off and he never gets better. And so some guys will think, well, it doesn't matter how much work I put into the game. I'm not getting that break. I ain't getting any recognition. I'm just done. I'm going to play senior hockey. And then, onlookers will say, oh, see how he burnt himself out.
Yeah.
Well, if anybody should be burnt out, it should be the likes of Tom Brady and Sidney Crosby, who like they work 25 hours a day, 8 days a week. you know, I don't know if the human body gets burnt out or just gives up. Yeah,
Yeah.
and had reports on both. But the overtraining, Shay's one liner back when all you guys and Shay and JC Lapon and yourselves and Tanner Eberle's when you guys were all training. I remember someone making the comment they were going to the lake and Shay at 14 years old's like, I've never boated before. He was asking the guy about like boating. And he's like, how can you never boat? I don't know. Like, usually I'm at this tournament or I'm doing this hockey school. Well, Shay got to do a lot of cool things because of that hard work he put in
Mm.
that his friends didn't get to go. But too, I think there's a big sacrifice these kids have to make that you don't get to hang out at Grandpa and Grandma's cabin all summer and be on the power play in November. And I think the sacrifice kids have to take, it rewards them later. And it's tough to explain to a kid, all this hard work you're putting on July 15th and you're missing out at the lake. It's worth it. It's truly tough to, sometimes convince people that. But then when your kid can just have success and their hard work at some point has produced that, it's just the life lessons we teach our kids for life, I believe. Like,
Mhm.
your dad bringing you in from Moose Jaw to Regina, um, you probably didn't know, well, these few sessions did it help me. But hey, you putting in a little bit of extra work on your shot or your stick handling, it got you to become a better player. And that teaches you stuff in life like, hey, if I just put that little extra work in, I can be things. So I think the people that go through that burnout and we're wrecking the kids have no life. Well, it's what the parent chooses. It's what the kids chooses. It's up to them. And that's where I talk about the different parent. There are different type of parents, and that's another story. But I just don't know if if there is overtraining happening. I'm in the business. I don't see it. I see people just quit the game for other reasons. But and when you talk about your ice, I help out with the Tisdale Trojans. You used to play against them when you were AAA in Moose Jaw there, Brock.
Yeah.
We don't have ice up there. And I say to the parents, just because we don't have ice doesn't mean your kids can't be doing something. So some kids in these markets are getting too much ice because there's too much. Maybe they're not shooting pucks. Maybe they're not running hills. Maybe they're not studying their game on film enough because they're doing too much. So my message to your guys is just because you don't have things that we don't have, you have things we don't have that you can benefit from.
Yeah, true. And I think like to your point, like overtraining, I mean, I think it's almost like it's kind of more or less from a kid's perspective. Like for me, let's like if I just think back when I was younger, like it wasn't possible for me to overtrain. Okay, maybe like in the gym or something, like doing too heavy of weights for what my body was capable of. Sure, you could say maybe that was overtraining or something. But, like, in terms of getting me to commit to work on my craft, it wasn't possible for me to really overtrain because I just love it. It wasn't work at the end of the day. It was just something I love to do. So, and I even take, like, my little nephew Leo, he plays with, what's it called? The Prairie Prairie Prep School or something out of Moose Jaw there, and, the kid I was talking to my older cousin about it, and, he said, like, "Man, the kid's, like, crazy. He loves it. He goes to hockey practice. They're on the ice 4 or 5 times a week doing practice. Then they got power skating with Bobbick, like, 2 times a week in Moose Jaw, and then we come home and, like, all the kid wants to do is go shoot pucks in his garage." And I'm like, "Yeah, like, that's how it is." I said, That's how I was when I was younger too. So don't worry about it. Like, it's not like he's not getting burned out. If he's coming home after practice and then he's by himself going in the garage and shooting, it's just because that's what he wants to do. Like, you don't have to worry about him burning out because I was in the exact same position, and it's just something it just gets drilled into you. You just love it. You just get obsessed with the game, and I think that's where you see the kids have great potential and great, elevate their game in a big way, are the kids that just get obsessed with the game.
The- these parents that tell me how much their kid loves hockey, and my test for that is when it's hockey practice, is your do you have to pull your kid out of the house, or is the kid pulling you out of the house? Because if you have to say, "Get off your Xbox, we got practice, let's go," I don't know if that kid loves hockey. But if the kid's at the door with his bag telling you, let's go, we gotta be there," that's the difference between those are the kids that love it.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that couldn't have said that any better, and especially especially if it's to go to power skating.
Oh, yeah, not all the kids are morning kids, and, and yeah, it's, times have changed. Did an interview about a year ago with the Pats radio, and it was an older journalist, and he asked me, "What's been the biggest change since, like, what even the things you did?"
Yep.
We have more accessible over 15 years. What's been the biggest change you've seen? We've seen way more access. The kids have access to more tools. There's more power skating teachers out there. But at the end of the day, I said that the kids that are going to successful are still putting the same amount of hours in. So when I take the past year, the early 90 born kids that play WHL, and I take the kids playing WHL today, you guys are putting the same amount of hours in different ways. Their hours might be more effective and things
Mhm.
we've over 15 years, but no, it's not like the kids are putting more hours in. This is how you make it now. All the guys having success have been put a ton of work in, and that's something that hasn't changed.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Hard work is still hard work, and that's never gonna change. You worked with the Pat Canadians. Did you work with, Eli
We're
Johnson?
China Pats.
Regina Pats. Oh, okay, so you didn't work with the Pat Canadians?
No,
No.
I worked with the Pat Canadians for about 15 years ago.
Oh, okay.
I worked with Brad Haroff, and then when Brad worked with the Pats, got hired by the Pats as head coach, I started working with the Regina Pats.
Yeah,
But
okay. Yeah, okay, so that's where that's when you started working with Bedard, was
yeah,
with the Pat. Yeah, okay. Yeah, yeah, I wasn't sure if you ever worked with Eli Johnson. You didn't work with him, eh?
Well, no, I've and Eli Johnson since he was about 10 years old, through his teams and everything. So I watched him grow through the system, and he's in WHL Prince George
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if he ever came into your guys' place or not, because his old man there, Todd, he was my coach back in Kootenai.
Oh,
He's a great
okay.
Yeah, he's a great guy, so yeah, that's cool. So how are you still working with the Regina Pats now?
Yes, I am. Yeah, they're
Oh,
shooting,
nice.
and
And so you predominantly are focusing on shooting. How have you seen shooting change, like, even from when I was younger? Obviously, I was from the era where we were just switching over from wood sticks, and then the technique of shooting changed so much. But what have you kind of seen, and what do you kind of give to players to, like, take home, let's say, when they go to shoot? Like, are you giving them kind of tools to shoot, because you don't want a kid going home and just working on bad habits the whole time, but are you giving them certain techniques or tools, or let's just say, yeah, it's kind of a bit of a long question, but are you also working off of kids' technique they already have and building on their strengths, or are you wanting to try and change their whole shot technique?
Well, that's a good question. It's kind of, if I compare you and your brother was, how many inches taller is he than you?
Yeah, he's 4 inches taller than me almost.
Right? So he's probably, the chances of you having a hard shot like your brother aren't as good. But the chances of your brother having a quicker shot than you, they're not good. So when you just say, I'm not a guy that just thinks this, everybody should shoot this way.
Right.
You know,
I should pause you there quick because actually when you and I were working together though, I didn't have a growth spurt until I was like 18. So when you and I were working together, I was real small. Bo is a monster. He was already 6'2". He was already like 6'4", and I was still only like five. I don't know what I was, 5'8" or 5'6" or 7 or something like that. So there's where you probably remember me from, a huge difference with my brother then.
yeah. So like depending on your body type and your athleticism ability, there's different shots for different bodies. So we try to, or something that you are having success with, we tried to build it on from there. But the number one thing about hockey shooting is, back when you played, the sticks were just starting to get a little better, but you guys were using like 110 flexes and 120 flexes, and the guy that used 100 flex was getting made fun of on your team because the stick was so low. But at the end of the day, none of you could flex your stick, didn't matter what you had.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
sticks in the last since 2007. These sticks were kind of introduced. I got one over there, the Triflex, Bauer and the Synergy Eastons. And in that, I call it the experiment time between '01 and '07 was just really the companies experimenting. And then '07 till now, every day, we are officially at the stage now with the new sticks. I forget what CCMs is called. I deal with Bauer, the Bauer Pulse. The sticks
Oh
are
yeah.
officially shooting for you now. So, and I think that's a big miss on the stick companies. They sell these expensive sticks, and they're not really educating the consumer how to use them properly. So it's good for guys like me. And eh, the lot of the every kid, I guarantee you, even where you are, has the fancy sticks, but not a lot of people are using them the way they should be used. So you're essentially wasting your mom and dad's money. You should be getting a wood stick. But that's the big thing is, you know, working and shots. I don't know if you remember Todd Holt. He used to be at Puck Masters back in the day. Shooting technique really never changed from the 80s and 90s. There was no new shots. The Brett Hall slot shots, the Gretzky, there wasn't. Now we're seeing every 3 months, I'm getting completely different shots sent to me. And there's so many, the way that they're changing angles. Another thing that's affected shooting so much is goaltending has gotten that much. The amount of the size these guys are, how much more athletic they are. So it's kind of like where I say the shooters are ahead of the curve. It's kind of like in baseball. Right now, we're in a baseball home run hitting frenzies. There's more, the scores are up, but the pitchers are going to figure out what all these batters are going to do. Then there's going to be a whole bunch of strikeouts. So right
Mhm.
now, I believe in hockey, we're in a time where the goalies are urgently studying what we're doing, and then they can catch up to us. So there's no goal. Even Justin, he ain't sitting there thinking about what shot we're inventing or trying to come up with. And I'm not inventing nothing. I always say, like, the next shot is being invented on some 12-year-old's driveway, on
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
playing with, and he's going to score. That's the new toe drag release. That's the new, but they are only reactive to what we're doing with Trent. So, a whole bunch of kids in the game are scoring on toe drag releases. The goalies are training how to stop the toe drag release, right? So we're got to keep getting better with more deception, and so that's the biggest thing. And yeah, we work with technique, and just try, like, no different than a dad going to a swing coach, just trying to fix those, postures or whatever to maximize the shot. with whatever height or weight you have.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And how big of a difference do you think it like, or how much do you think it matters for kids, say that um or maybe don't have the best shot, they've been working on their shot loss. How big of a difference do you think it makes, like finding the right stick, the right flex, the right lie? I think that's a big one nowadays. But there's also like back when I was younger, it was like we had Saka curve and I don't know. That was kind of it. You had like four different off the coffee, the Paul Coffee. I don't remember if you remember the Paul Coffee who had the big Paul Coffee curve, and there wasn't so many to select from. But nowadays there's so many different options. I feel like it kind of maybe is difficult for kids to make a choice.
So back when our parents, I'm 10 years older than you, but back our parents and your parents, when they said, Brock, the $79 hockey stick is no better than the $30 hockey stick. They weren't lying. They weren't lying. There was no difference. But today, there and I there is a huge difference between the top performance sticks and the mid performance sticks. And you
Mm,
don't believe it, but even as kids as young as 7 and 8, you can see a difference. So I'm sorry, parents, I'm telling you that opening your wallets up, but there is a huge difference. And it wasn't like that when we were kids because a stiff stick's a stiff stick. It might have had a better mold or something on it, but they were all the same for efficiency, performance. Now it's a world apart.
yeah, yeah, they're all just they were all just pieces of lumber. But yeah, that's so true. Nowadays, they're such a different stick between. Like I even see like the local shop here carries like the second level sticks because they just probably can't afford to keep the expensive ones all in stock because there's just not enough kids buying them. And I went and checked them out the other day. They still have like the Bauer name on them and the whatever it is, the speed they call them this whatever that like the knockoff of the first version, and they're four times as heavy. They don't have the flex. They don't have the kick point or anything. So you think that is a pretty big, you would say then for a lot of kids, like that's a pretty big thing to find is that stick that works for them.
The stick that works for them and try a few different out. And some people, and there is a big difference, I believe, between the companies, between the things. And don't just go get a stick because Connor McDavid uses that stick. Don't just get the stick because Connor Bedard gets that stick. Find the stick that works for you. Just the unfortunate part of the game is if a hockey stick, the mid has good durability, it probably has bad performance. If a stick has high performance, it's probably got bad durability. And the problem is they break them, and people keep buying them. So there's no pressure for the stick companies to bring up their durability. And that's the unfortunate part because when you hear people pick on hockey, how expensive it is, it makes, oh, the $480 for a hockey stick. It's crazy. And they're not durable. Well, it's unfortunate because all elite sport is expensive between, synchronized swimming, my buddy's kids in a hotel 3 weekends a month, right? He says it's cheap. I wish my daughter played hockey because this sport's more expensive.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's so easy to pick on the startup of hockey and the sticks is a touchy subject throughout the game because I believe it's hurting the game a little bit.
Just with how expensive you think it is, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of parents are going to hate you because you just said that they should have the top sticks and they should be trying out a couple of them. So you're going to be you're going to get some heat for that one now. But I do agree though. Like you do need if you really want to try and get to that next level and give yourself the best chance, you do need that. And I think it's even the same with skates, unfortunately. Like you go buy a cheap pair half like their knockoff version pair of skates, the cheap kind of generic ones. It doesn't give you even close to the same performance. Like how how have you noticed like hockey change over there in Canada? I've kind of been away from the youth hockey there, but how have you seen it change? Because there's so many different schools and there's so many different. I feel like there's so many different leagues from when I was younger over there.
Yeah, you were just talking about your nephew or cousin's team, the South Sask Selects, I think they're called.
Oh yeah, so Saskalex, yeah,
In Canada forever, if you want to call it in political worlds like dictatorship or government regime, there was only one place to play. And if you were really elite, you got to play, like if I go back to your AAA days, I think you were Wheatland Wild, you
yeah,
know,
yeah. Oh, the old Wheatland Wild. I love that. I love those days.
and if you look back at those days, how many guys potentially went on to NHL and WHL from that team? It was probably a very healthy majority. Well,
Yeah.
now, spring hockey has really taken a risen. You know, it used to be in the wintertime, you could only play for Hockey Canada within their system. Well, now parents have the option of going to the academy route, which is still Hockey Canada, but it's a totally different. It's kind of their own layout, and then they call them outlaw leagues, but they're just the competition to Hockey Canada, and they're starting to build. So you have more options of where to put your kid, and I think one thing it did is a little bit the negative of it. It didn't. It's not allowing all our top kids to get together
Yeah.
to develop you. But the positive of it, it's given more kids opportunity. So there's some kids that didn't get the opportunity to play Wheatland Wild. So if we could have just given, if we could have, how many more players? So the more players we're given opportunity to, I think the more players we're going to think. You talk about yourself, right? You had a late growth spurt, right? Well, think we got kids not making U13 teams because they're too small. Well, they have a 6'2" dad. Maybe they're not going to grow till Bantam. So we always think less teams is better. But if we have more teams, we're giving more kids the opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point actually. Never really thought about that. And like, yeah, and with the because now there's so many of those schools also like the what do they call them? The kind of like the prep schools. Like there's also the one just outside of Moose Jaw there in Caronport. There's so many more of those leagues now. Like is AAA in the AAA league? Like I was always Moose Jaw AAA Warriors. Is that still kind of the predominant AAA league, or now are the schools kind of competing? It seems like, or are they kind of equal now? Or
So that's the debate. You won't get an honest answer from me because I help out in the league with Tisdale Trojans. But right now, the way it is no one's quitting our league to go to CSSHL. That's Canadian Schooling Leagues
right,
coming to us right now. Now, the 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 academies are more taking like the NCAA routes where they don't have games during the week. They're training, they're weightlifting. Here in Saskatchewan, we're more preparing you for, we believe it's the best model for the junior experience where we have games on a Wednesday night, double headers on the weekend. There's times in the schedule where you're going to have 4 games in 7 days. Now the negatives of it are our kids maybe aren't spending as much time in the gym as they should be because they have a game on Wednesday night and they don't get to work out that week. But as for the buses, the late nights, it's more of a reality preparing you. So right now, taking my biased hat off, I think they're both great options. We got guys playing in the WHL from both models. There is
right.
no, there is no right or wrong model. There's kids from both leagues maybe not developing the way they should be. So not everyone goes on to the next level and has success. So, you know, I think they're both good models. You know, there's one model that's more expensive than the other one,
Yeah,
of the college stuff. So back when the huge thing that's changed in hockey, back when you played, I think there was Shattuck, St. Mary, and Notre Dame.
yeah,
But we've had like a real wave of academies coming, and we're starting to see more kids getting drafted from the academies. They're putting more hours in than, there's more money. So is it creating an uneven playing field? So you think some of these kids are paying up to $35,000 a year, where minor hockey fees to play double A hockey in Moose Jaw or Regina, it might be between 35 and $5,000.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's a big difference, yeah.
I'm not saying there's not good coaches in double A, but you're probably getting coaches with previous experience. They're making good money. There's more money in the budget for more ice times, power skating, and everything. So it's I guess it starts with what you can afford and then what fits your family the best and everything. So
Yeah. Curious, like what would you say for some young kids that like, I mean, I myself kind of an example of it. Like I wasn't drafted in the Western League. I went to three different camps in one year to try and make the Western League. And then, I ended up getting listed, but I'm sure you've worked with a lot of kids that you think, hey, are good enough to make the Western League, maybe don't get drafted. What are some things that you're sharing with those kids? Like some advice that you give to these kids that say, like, just keep battling, you'll get there someday.
well, you know, I think in 20 years of doing this, one thing I can say is I don't feel like everyone. What's your definition of making it? So you kid coming from Moose Jaw that wasn't drafted, that got to go win a WHL title, that is making it, right? If it's only making the NHL, well, if that was what to me, you made it. So what's making it? Or moving on to the next level. But just at the next level, junior above, there's not one guy, man, that I feel sorry for that this guy worked so hard and he can't truly worked hard. Like, not, oh, I saw him work hard in the gym once. He works hard. No, I'm talking a 5 year, 6 year picture of this kid. And I know he's had no downtime minus the odd injury here, but he's devoted these 6 years of his life on the game. I don't feel bad for one guy. They all kind of make it. Now,
Mm.
everyone's making it's different. My definition is playing junior, getting some schooling, whatever not. That's making it. Not a lot of kids do 1% plays pro, maybe 2% get that option. So keep going and, like expect. And if you have huge success early and all of a sudden you get to a certain level, well, now you have to learn how to learn to evolve, get better. So a lot of people quit when it gets tough. And the people, besides the Connor McDavids and Crosby and Bedard, where you go first overall in Bantam, you have huge success, and you go first overall to NHL, and then you go to the NHL. There's like maybe 5 people on planet Earth that have had that easy path. Everybody else in the NHL has had major adversity at one time. Like, we all want our kid to be Connor McDavid and Bedard, but it's okay. You can have a ton of success in this game, not being those three guys. And so I just say, it's so easy to quit if you truly love it. The other thing is, we talked about earlier about loving the game. Well, if, I deal with kids a lot that are mad that they don't score goals and they don't like hockey anymore and they're thinking about maybe just quitting. Okay. Well, and they're looking to, come on. I will never convince somebody to keep, if you're only going to keep working hard because Trevor and Shay told you to, that's not a good reason. Shay yells at me when I yell at some kids. We can't want it more than them, right? And so it's so easy to quit. But if you're going to the next level and you're not scoring goals anymore, you're not the go-to guy for goals. But if hockey's only fun to you because you're scoring goals, well, then you don't love the whole game. But if you're willing to accept a different role, be more of a checking thing, more physical, more of a playmaker, whatever it takes for the team to win. If you're not willing to change maybe what the game will accept you at, well, then you're not going to make it. You know what I mean? So it's finding your things, but Yeah, I could tell you 100 success stories of guys like yourself not being drafted, or, think about your WHL career. How many guys in the first round never even played, maybe, right?
Hmm.
And here's the guy from Moose Jaw that wasn't even drafted that's playing, and you just kept working. I remember how much you always smiled and loved the game, but just keep working, and you might, back to that boat story, the work you put in today. One of my favorite stories to share with your kids of all times, this Tyler Adams. I don't know if you remember him, 97 kid. Never was drafted in the WHL, went on to win a WHL championship like yourself. Went to the SJHL, won a SJHL championship, and he gets to university hockey. I've worked with this kid since he's 10 years old, and he gets to university, and it was COVID happens. And this guy was at the gym and at the shooting lane every day. And he keeps getting better and better and better. That next season, he scored 1 goal. And I thought, oh man, see how hard he's working and everything. And he had 1 goal and 3 assists. Come on. And the next summer, he kept working and working and working. And one time he messages me, says, "Hey, can you leave the key in the mailbox for me? I want to go shooting tonight." On a on a Saturday night in July. You're 24 years old. Go chase some women or something. Like, almost tell, like, give it up, man. Like, what are you gonna do? You're doing all this work for 3 goals. Well, that next season, came out red hot, scored 14 goals in so many games, and got signed to a pro hockey team right away.
Nice.
So, what I'm saying, it wasn't, if he could have just gave up after that first year of only scoring 1 goal, he would have never got to experience. So that was 2, 3 years of hard work and not giving up is what got him that pro contract. So think
Yeah.
about how many times he could have quit in that time frame.
I think you bring up a great point of trying to, defining what success means for you. I mean, obviously, every kid wants to make the NHL. That's the goal when you're young. But then realizing, like, yeah, what is success for you? Success is different for everybody. And in hockey, there are, like you're saying, there are so many different avenues to go down. Like, there's so many different leagues that you can play in. Like, for sure, we want to make the NHL. But then at the end of the day, if you don't make the NHL, like, if you can just help, for I guess for you and for myself, like coaching, our goal is always just to help them get to the next level, whatever that may be for that individual. But in terms of like the bigger picture, there's so many leagues out there. Like hockey has opened up a huge world for me. It's opened up a huge world for you, going to, over to Korea, to China, working with Iran. And as for players, they also have to remember, like, there's hundreds of leagues over in Europe. There's Australia, there's New Zealand, there's whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be always the NHL at the end of the day. And I think, also to your point, also, I think that kind of goes with everything in life as well. Like, you have to go through the grind if you want to get the the reward. It's not as easy as Instagram makes everything look, or like the McDavids and stuff like that. It looks easy for them, but still those guys are grinding harder than anybody out there.
But just the connections. I wish you could. I wish there was more reasons. Like, a lot of people are just playing hockey to make the NHL, and I wish people could see the broader picture of not just hockey, what sport, and getting your kid active, involved. There's this guy, it's public knowledge. He makes $10 million a year, CEO of a big company here in Regina. And he messaged me a while ago, and he said, "Well, I want to meet with you. I want my kid in all the time with Shay." And I said, "Okay." So I met with him, and he drew up the schedule of how much he wants his kid in with us and all this. And I said to him, "You make $10 million a year." I read it online. It's public knowledge. And I said, "What do you want your son hanging out with us bums so much? If he started hanging out with you more, the business advice you can get him ahead of of his peers and hanging out. I know people don't listen to their dad, but think of the things him that's better than hockey. And the chances of making $10 million in the NHL, I think, is there even 10 guys that do that? You make more money. So start pushing him ahead in business. And he said, listen, he said, all the people in my boardroom, I could tell which ones never played sports or thing, right? Sport is where if it's not for hockey and sport, I am not the guy running my company. I didn't learn these stuff in university on leadership. I learned how to get along with others in the dressing room. I learned how to rely on other people's in the dressing room on being on a team sport. So the connections I made, I don't get this job if it's not through hockey. So, and I thought, wow. So he goes, what I'm doing in these years is giving him success and, put him in a position where he can play at a next level, learn these things, hopefully get connections like me. And I thought, wow, now is he just a good actor and a crazy parent? I don't know. But I thought if we could push more messages like that, like, even Shay, my partner, he's, got friends in Croatia and he gets to go to live in when he goes to Vancouver, he gets to stay at mansions, all because he met people through Notre Dame. And, we still pick up business because of his past connections of Notre Dame and people we've met. And I just wish people could see what else hockey does for life skills or sport, not just hockey.
Yeah, just the discipline of the high work, like trying to achieve that highest level, just what you learn along the way, I think. Actually, in speaking with that, like what you've worked with, obviously, tons of great players. I mean, Bedard's obviously the biggest name player you've worked with, but like when you working with those guys, what are some things that you maybe have also learned along the way from those guys, just their mindset, their mentality, kind of going through it as you also kind of continue your career of coaching and helping?
Yeah, I, I say those guys are, one guy I looked up the first time I ever got trained with Bedard. I phoned one of my mentors up, a guy that works with NHL superstars. He said, keep a journal when you work with that guy
Mm,
because things that just happen, you'll think cool, but you'll forget about it. Keep a journal because you're not working with normal person. I thought good advice. And a lot of the things where people, oh, is it cool working with Bedard? And what's his stick flex? What's his height of his stick? Like those are irrelevant questions. And then, oh, you got any funny stories? But then you just think of like the little stories I kept track of over time that separates them when I've read. Maybe I didn't appreciate the time, but when you look back, how focused he was, how driven he was, how he never came to just hang out with the guys or be there to be there. There was a purpose in everything they did, and when you do a drill, sometimes he'd want 200 pucks. Sometimes he would do that drill with 8 pucks. It Everything had a
right.
purpose. And I remember one time, what do you want to work on today? Just rhythm. I'm feeling good. I just want to keep my rhythm, and it's kind of like, I'm not going to say he's not, he was there. There was no joking around. It was just all business and focus. And that's what I thought separated them. My coolest Bedard story is one time we were doing face-offs, and he loved going against Shay because Shay tries so hard and he liked competition. And I'm dropping the pucks, and we look down, and there's a pile of blood, probably the size of a toonie. And Shay, first off, turned white, thinking he just cut off a finger of a guy that makes $10 million, that's going to make $10 million a year. And he said, are you okay? Did I hit you? And he said, no. And he took off his glove, and there was blood dripping down his elbow onto the floor because he was shooting so much his hand was raw. And we were saying, oh, do you want us to go get you a rag or, a Band-Aid? And the only reason he said yes is so he didn't think we thought he was a weirdo with blood all over him. He didn't care. We got to the first aid room with Shay, and the glove was, I took a picture of it. I'm not going to post it to the world because I think there's a picture of a glove with blood stained through it, a puddle of blood through the. And if any of your listeners don't know a hockey glove, it's thick palm. And he came back with a band-aid on his hand and shot another 400 pucks that night. And I just like how many people go home. We talk about quit earlier. How many people just go home because their hands sore?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's what people always don't see. And that's what, like, when I was talking with Chris Knobloch, the coach in Edmonton, he said,
Every
like, I was talking with him about McDavid and those guys, and he said those guys. He made a really great point. Also, I think, because when we talk about like hard work, and we talk about guys that like battle and compete and everything like that, and you always think of like the hardest workers. You always think, generally speaking, you're thinking about those guys that go out there, grind it out, hitting, bumping, blocking shots, everything like that. Also, and then the superstars kind of get overlooked, like Bedard. Sometimes it gets overlooked on them. Then and that's what Chris said, is like, in practice, McDavid is the hardest working player on the ice. He's the hardest working player in the gym. The game, they're just so their skill set is just so good that it looks so much easier for them on the ice. But he said, like, in practice, he's competing harder than anybody, and off ice competing harder than anybody. And so I think that's a great story you share with Bedard. Like, he's battling through it. Like, he's just there continuously working on his craft nonstop. And those guys sometimes don't get the credit for being the hardest working guys.
and that's what Chris said too. Like, we work with a few NHL guys that are a sixth defenseman on a team, right? A fourth liner on a team, and they're working just as hard. And that is the best. And that's the other thing I talk about training. Just doing that story alone, you're not going to become Connor Bedard. But where I push this hockey to the kids is, if you put all the work in and leave no regret. So I'm the same age as LeBron James. If me and LeBron James were born at the same time, ate the same meals every day, slept the same time every day, worked out the same time every day, did the exact same thing. My ceiling, I might have been the 12th guy on the U of R basketball team here with I could not have been LeBron James. But you know what? At my potential. And when you leave the game or move on from it, you have no regrets about what you
Mhm.
could. Like, I bet you if you look back at your career, you're thinking, well, if my dad would have drove me to Regina a few more times, or if my dad would have done this and this, I would have made it. You put in the hard work that you feel good about, you have no regrets.
Yeah.
And and I think that's a good way to leave the game, and it sets you up for life, I truly believe, meeting your potential. And there are guys working as hard as Bedard just to be that sixth man in the NHL. So what Chris said, there's people meeting their potential. They are given themselves the best opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that is the biggest thing for athletes to realize at the end of the day, is like, and you talk about myself, and it's true. Even when parents ask me or whatever, like, did you make the NHL, or were you close to making the NHL or whatever? And I always say I did everything I could in my power to make the NHL. Like, at the end of the day, I truly 100% believe that I did everything I could. Like, I made all the sacrifices when I was younger. I wasn't the one always out at the lake. Like, I was in early, getting up early, and so I can go home at the end of the day. And now that my career is kind of over, I can be happy with where I am. And I think that's a great point that you make for young athletes, is like, you can put in the 10,000 hours and or more, and you might not be the Connor McDavid, or you might not be the Bedard, but you might be a fourth line guy in the AHL, and that maybe is your ceiling. But when your career is over, that's a great point you make. You can look back and say, hey, I did everything I could. And I think maybe it's a good point for maybe even younger kids listening now. Like, I didn't really realize it at the point at the time when I was younger, because you always want to be better. You always want to be one of the top players. But now that I'm older, I can look back and honestly say to myself that, hey, I did everything I could. I think it was like, when I was younger, I didn't really realize it, if that makes kind of sense. But now that I'm older, I can look back and be like, hey, I did do everything I could in my power, and my ceiling just wasn't not McDavid. Like, there's a very rare amount of people that are going to be McDavid, obviously.
Yeah. No, then that's the thing. If you're only playing hockey to be McDavid, well, like hockey's a 120-year-old sport, and we have like high people or Mount Rushmore. It's okay not to be one of those five guys. And, like the pressure these kids feel. We have a first overall pick in Regina right now. I've known him since he's 9, and I hate to put on comparisons of who he could be, but, you know, he puts in the work, he's putting in the time, and then with the pressures of this. So, the good players are creating this themselves. They're not listening to the outside world. And that's the other thing about Bedard is, if he had a bad game, he's the first to know about it. If he needs to work on something, he's the first to know about it. He ain't being forced or pushed to work on his deficiencies. And the other one thing about Bedard is he loved to practice things he wasn't good at or things
Mm.
he was struggling at, I would see. Now I was just shooting. Um, but what I'm saying is a lot of kids just work on the things they're good at or like to do. And that's not like we all got stuff we hate doing in life, but we have to, like we all hate, cleaning. Laundry's the easy part, but we all hate cleaning the toilets, but we have to do it. There's things in the game you have to do that aren't fun, but you have to do. And that's what I found about him, how he was always practicing, different types of things that he was struggling with.
Right. Yeah. And everyone always talks about like his shooting because he has such a great shot, but like he's putting in the work on skating. And like a lot of kids, like you have to love skating because like what we were talking about at the start of the podcast was like you have the puck for, majority of guys are having the puck for an average of 30 seconds or whatever it is, the average guy. And so the rest of the game is skating. Like you have to work on skating, and his skating is elite. You have to work on your skating, and you have to work on game knowledge, hockey sense, learning where to go. Like you can't just like I run a lot of power skating over here, and kids will be asked, they'll sign up for a power skating camp, and then they ask like, "Oh, when are we going to be doing shooting?" It's like, guys, this is this is a power skating camp. Like shooting, you don't need to work on shooting right now. Like I love it that you want to work on shooting, but that's for a different time and place. So you got to work on your craft, the whole, like you're saying, the whole picture. You got to make the whole circle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and it's tough to because the way I go back to the way Instagram is, it's only cool. Bedard's getting way more screen time than other guys are getting, right? So they all want to be the guy. And I just wish like hockey was, and they think you can only have success if you're the high producers or high point guys. And I was talking to a Bantam team the other day, and they were complaining about points, and their coach doesn't get the points fixed for us. And I have 12 points and I got screwed over on 3 assists. Okay. So I said to the kids, hey, who got 20, 30 points last year? And 6 kids raised their hand. I said, okay, how many points did you have? He said, 30. Okay. I said, how many points did you get screwed on? And he said, 5. And I said, how many goals or assists did you get that you shouldn't have? 4. So we're the differential of 1 point, right? Looking at, oh, you had a shitty season because you only got 30 points as opposed to 31, right? But we focus so much on the rat race of the points. And my perfect example right now of the value. We got this kid. I've loved him. He plays on our Tisdale team. He's from Regina here. I've loved him since he was a Pee-wee player. He's a stay-at-home defenseman. Every time the puck's in the corner, he gets it up to the forward. Every time the puck's in front of the net, he's moving it away. Every time the puck's on the blue line, he keeps it in. But he could not toe drag if his life depended on it. He couldn't skate past somebody. But you know what? We take him in Tisdale, and of all the scouts that phone us and talk to us, he's the most talked about player because the higher you get, the more value because there's not very many good stay-at-home defensemen. It's
Yeah.
tough to make. So making your craft what sorry, not every if you're 400 pounds, you never get to be a Tom Brady quarterback winning 7 Super Bowls and models. You're probably O line or D line, bud, right? And that's where I think football has it so much better over hockey. My kid plays football and actually plays with one of your that's the first time I heard your name in a few years last year. He plays with one of your cousins,
Oh,
and
which team?
tattooed guy.
Oh, Jake Montgomery.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, funny.
So anyways, in football, they put people in their positions. So now when football coming into college, these O linemen have been O linemen forever. They got 8 years of being position or different positions. In hockey, if I said to a 13-year-old kid, man, you have a chance of being the next best stay-at-home defenseman in the NHL and play there for 15 years. Well, that's not exciting and that's not fun because nobody wants to be that stay-at-home defenseman. Nobody wants to be that third line guy that
Mm.
gets the deep and turns it over. We all want to be Cale Makar or Connor McDavid.
Yeah, true. Well, a good example of that actually, because you're up in Tisdale. I think Leacher. Do you remember Joey Leach?
Yep, yep.
Yeah, like
He's
yeah,
previously.
Leacher's a great example of that. Like the guy had like it was kind of like a joke on the team, like it's always strong side out, like Leacher's up off the glass and out, and it just frustrated teams. Like, but as a teammate, you always knew Leacher was getting the puck out. He made a career off of being a stay-at-home D-man. The guy was like, no offense to Leacher if he ever's listening to this, but he wasn't a skilled defenseman. But that doesn't matter. Like that's the point. Like, and he doesn't need to take offense to it because he was amazing at what he did. Like his role was playing defense. He took it into his head. Hey, my role is not to get scored on. My role is to get pucks up to the forwards, and that's it at the end of the day, and shoot the puck on net and not get shots blocked. And so he took his 5 main things that he needed to do, and he perfected those. He wasn't working on Michigan's or anything like that. He was working on his role.
So you also got guys that they don't understand like it's tough to explain to parents and younger kids that the points really don't matter. When they're scouting, they're looking for the complete package. Are you making the smart play? When you hear like, oh, this guy's never passes it, then you talk to the kid, you got to be making plays. Well, my teammates can't handle a pass and they'll never give it back. No, but that's the right thing to do. Even though if that might not translate, it's the right thing to do. And so if I was sitting with a scout one time and I said, man, this guy's not playing good today. He says, what are you talking about? Well, he goes, he set up a guy perfect back door 4 times. It's not his fault that guy can't tap it in back door. So I look at this game as he should have had 4 assists. He didn't get them, but he should have.
Mm,
And he's doing the right things continuously and making smart hockey plays. And it's tough because people just look at the score sheet and define, you have no clue, right? Watching last night's Moose Jaw Warrior game, who had a good game and bad game, just looking at the score sheet. You can
right.
say, well, guy scored 2 goals and an assist. Obviously, he had a good game, but that guy with all zeros, you don't know if he had a good game or not.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and even the guy that had two assists, like he might have actually had a horrible game. Like he might have had a couple a couple secondary assists, but he was -3 and took 2 stupid penalties and had a shitty on the back check or whatever it may be. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, those are some good points. I want to kind of a bit off topic, but I just want to circle back. Do you remember when we did that that fighting clinic back at Buckmasters?
Oh yeah. So
That was awesome.
I don't think We had another one we may or may not have had one this summer is all I'll say, and, it was with pro hockey. We brought a former pro hockey player. I don't wanna say his name, get him in trouble. We had a former pro hockey player, over 500 fights, so some people can look that up. You'll find the name out quick, and we had pro guys, and there was a whole bunch of guys going into the AHL or, going there's a few guys we had going into junior, and it's all protection,
Yeah.
and back when I had the Derek Bugard fight camp, he was saying me and him met each other one time, and he was saying, I always dad's asking me to teach their kid how to fight. I said, would I be able to borrow your space? And I said, why don't we do a huge, huge camp, bring in a whole bunch of kids? He says, good, then I could do it at once and move on. Okay. So, anyways, I think you were at the first ever one, I think, with
I think
Boomer.
so.
And anyways, what we did is the first I can't remember if that was the one we gave you T-shirts or not,
Yeah, I don't
but
recall, but
and so anyways, we do the first one, and it was so good. He taught you guys where to grab, how to protect your head. Everything was good. But then at the very end of the camp, we gave you guys these boxing gloves that were the size of a pillow, and we let you box.
yeah.
Earlier on in that day, there was one of the guys that was my partners at the time was talking to a leader post guy and said, hey, we're doing this fight camp. Do you want to come and do an article? Well, sure. And and so he writes an article. 2 days later, I get a call from a buddy in Prince George, and another that same day I got a call from a guy in Toronto saying, what the hell are you doing? And this is before the internet was huge. He said, we're having I read about your fight camp. In where? Oh, that article he wrote on the Associated Press went in every newspaper across Canada. It was the slow time, this barbaric fight camp going on in Regina. Or kind of got like Minnesota, the Americans and all that were saying, hey, can we come and see your next fight camp? So Bugard's saying to me, hey, the Minnesota Tribune and all these papers want to come and see the next camp. Okay. So he kind of forced me to do another one. And we gave out these t-shirts that with some blood stain on them. It was, it looked like barbaric.
Yeah.
And the last one we had, Sports Illustrated, New York Times, CNN, and if you Google search, Wayne Gretzky got asked about what he thinks about this camp, but it
No
was
way.
blown out of proportion in the fact that it was a protection camp. It was a slow time of the news cycle in hockey. But, I remember getting a call from Hockey Canada, official there saying, stop these camps. And he said, there's some mom sitting at home with a 6-year-old kid deciding if she's putting her kid in hockey or soccer, and you're chasing him to soccer. And I wish it was kind of a summer fun thing, but I had nothing but success stories from that camp. Stories with kids your age going to a camp and a 20-year-old jumping them and
Yeah.
saying, Dad, that $50 you spent was the best money ever because I was able to tuck my head in properly. I was able to protect myself. And that's what the mission statement of the camp was. I'm sure we overhyped it in different ways looking back, but there's still a demand. It's still in the game. It's not so much in the game at the lower levels. It's
Yeah.
at the game high levels, and guys need. There's guys. The truth of it, there's guys that are on teams because they're willing to fight. And now we know what we know about head trauma and CTE. Guys got to protect themselves if they're going to take that role.
Well, exactly. As long as they're allowing it to be part of the game. And I think, I would make the argument that sometimes fighting makes the game safer in a weird sense, like in terms of limiting guys getting targeted from, the best players getting targeted from fourth line players or whatever it may be. And also the shots behind the ice. And you're not going out there throwing up elbows, looking to elbow someone because, at the end of the day, someone's going to grab you and beat you. But I guess nowadays it's limited a lot more now because of all the video and everything. But to your point, if they're going to allow it to be continue being part of the game, well, yeah, I think the camp that you ran was great. And I think if you still do it, it's great because kids have to be able to learn to defend themselves. And I was that 16-year-old kid going into camp getting jumped by a 20-year-old. Like actually to a point, I got jumped by a 20-year-old. I'll still never forget it. We were in Red Deer. Their captain jumped me. I ended up beating him up. He ended up getting cut that year, and I made our team. So, like, hey, credit to you. I don't know. I think it helped me. Whatever it was that happened. I was never a huge fighter. I had a few fights every year, but it's. I think at the end of the day, it gives you some more confidence on the ice, knowing like if you got to get into a bit of a brawl, yeah, you'll be able to defend yourself and not get smacked around. Like,
Yeah, though those were good times. I mean, the one thing you maybe know in hockey, listening fans, if they're still listening, is there's less stage fighting in the game where there's 6'7" guys fighting our 6'7" guy, but still people didn't respect that generation enough. If it's Red Deer Rebels 6'7" guy just beats the shit out of Kootenai's 6'7" guys. The your bench manners have changed a little bit. Like they played a huge role in tone of the game and everything. I don't think they people thought it was stage fighting, but it wasn't. Now we're getting more of the fighting,
yeah.
competing battles. Continues from a compete battle.
Yeah, exactly, and as it should be. But, hey, Trevor, I don't wanna take up, too much more of your time. I really appreciate you jumping on, chatting with me. It's nice to be able to catch up, and what are you doing? You're heading off here right away to
Yeah, we're
Beijing?
at King, and we got working with a few different groups in 3 different cities, so it's exciting. And say hi to your dad. I remember my dad was the president of the Saskatchewan Curling Association,
No
and
way. I didn't know that.
so yeah, so I was always a fan of like the Brier winners and all that. And so when your dad first came to me, I knew you and your brother were good players, but I was more excited about like one of my favorite curlers coming in. I got to train my favorite curler's kid. So
That's awesome. That's cool. I didn't know that. Nice. Well, an update on him since you probably don't know, but he's still in the game of curling. He's coaching my little brother Blake. They're doing well. They're good. They got a good team. They just won Saskatchewan's, I think, last year. So they're doing good. He's still in the curling game. So cool. Nice, man. That's awesome. I appreciate you jumping on with me. We'll stay in touch and I'll make sure to let people know they can follow you guys on your Instagram's TS Hockey, right? Is that what it
yes,
is? Yeah, perfect. I'll make sure to tag that in here and wish you guys nothing but success going forward here. Next time I'm back home, I'll try and jump on in and
replace when you come back home. I'll be insulted if you don't. So
yeah, man, for sure. I'll definitely jump in next time I'm back.
thanks, Brock.
All right, Trevor, take care. Thanks for listening to Ask a Pro. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to follow and subscribe on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube so you don't miss the next one. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Brock Montgomery. That's where I'll post upcoming guests and give you the chance to submit your own questions. Until next time, keep asking, keep learning.